He saved a little alien girl years ago. Now she's back saying, "I came to wed you." Evan Hale still remembered the smell of burned metal, even after all these years. The orbital aid station drifted quietly at the edge of human space, its lights dimmer than they used to be. Evan moved through the narrow maintenance corridor with a tool kit in his hand, fixing a power relay that should have been replaced months ago. That station had never been important to anyone except refugees and tired workers like him. Back then, humanity was new to the galaxy. Humans were allowed to help, to repair, to clean, but rarely to decide anything. Evan did not complain. He was good with his hands, and he believed that keeping people alive mattered more than titles. The day everything changed started with alarms. A sudden impact shook the station, throwing Evan against the wall. Red lights flashed, and emergency sirens echoed through the metal halls. Pirate ships had attacked the refugee convoy docked nearby. Everyone knew pirates targeted weak stations, places protected more by hope than weapons. Evan's supervisor shouted orders over the intercom, telling all personnel to reach safe zones. Evan obeyed at first, running with others toward the central shelter. But as he passed a broken side corridor, he heard something that made him stop. A soft sound, not an alarm, not metal breaking. A cry. Evan hesitated. Protocol said to keep moving. Pirates did not care who they killed. But the sound came again, small and terrified, echoing from the dark corridor. He turned back. The side corridor was damaged, lights flickering. Smoke hung in the air, stinging his eyes. Evan moved slowly, calling out in a calm voice, even though his heart was racing. He did not know what he would find. Human child, alien adult, something dangerous. Behind a fallen cargo crate, he saw her. She was small, much smaller than a human child, her body thin and trembling. Her skin had a soft, pale glow, almost like moonlight underwater. Large eyes stared at him, full of fear. Blood, dark and not human, marked her side where debris had cut her. She was not human. Evan swallowed. First contact training ran through his mind. Do not touch unknown species. Do not interfere. Call security. Security was busy fighting pirates. The girl tried to crawl backward, pressing herself into the shadows. She made a weak sound, not words, but pain was clear in it. Evan slowly set his tool kit down and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke softly, using the universal trade language, though he did not know if she understood. "It's okay," he said. "I won't hurt you." Her eyes stayed locked on him. She did not understand the words, but she seemed to understand the tone. Another explosion rocked the station. The lights went out completely, leaving only emergency glow strips along the floor. Evan had seconds to decide. He stepped closer. She flinched but did not run. Maybe she could not. Evan knelt beside her and carefully examined the wound. It was bad but not fatal if treated quickly. He opened his kit and pulled out a med seal, designed for human use but adaptable in emergencies. He hesitated only a moment before applying it. The girl cried out softly, then went still as the seal closed the wound. The glow of her skin flickered, then steadied. Evan exhaled in relief. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Pirates or security, he could not tell. Either way, leaving her there was not an option. He lifted her gently. She was light, almost weightless. She tensed in his arms, but did not fight. "I'm going to get you out," he whispered, even though she could not understand. Evan knew where the refugee convoy's emergency launch bays were. He ran through the corridors, avoiding open areas, listening for danger. Once a pirate patrol passed close enough that Evan could hear their armor moving. He held his breath, pressing into a storage alcove, shielding the girl with his body. She clutched his jacket with small, shaking hands. At last, he reached the launch bay. A refugee transport was preparing to leave, its engines humming urgently. Aliens of many shapes rushed aboard, desperate to escape. Evan caught the attention of a harried dock officer and quickly explained, leaving out details that would slow things down. The officer glanced at the girl, then at the chaos around them, and made a quick decision. "Put her on," the officer said. "No time to ask questions." Evan carried her onto the ship. Inside, the air smelled different, full of strange scents and fear. He placed her gently into an empty seat and secured the harness around her small frame. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Slowly, she raised one hand and touched his arm, as if to remember him. Evan smiled, though his eyes burned. "You're safe now." The ship doors closed. Engines roared. As the transport pulled away, Evan stood in the bay, watching through the viewport until it vanished into the stars. He never learned her name. The station survived the attack, barely. Reports were filed, damages repaired. Evan did not mention the alien child. There were rules about these things, and he knew how fragile peace was. Life went on. Years passed. Humanity expanded slowly, carefully, always watched by older species who saw humans as short-lived, emotional, and weak. Evan left the aid station and took a logistics post on a quiet frontier world. It was safe work, boring work, exactly what he wanted. Sometimes, late at night, he thought of the glowing-eyed girl. He wondered if she had survived, if she remembered him. He never imagined she would. The day she returned, Evan was reviewing cargo schedules when the sky changed. Every alarm on the planet activated at once. Civilian broadcasts cut in, showing massive alien warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel above the colony. They were unlike anything humans had seen, sleek, elegant, and clearly ancient. Panic spread through the streets. Evan was escorted, confused and afraid, to the planetary command center along with other officials. No one explained why he was there. He was not important. He was not a leader. Then the message came. The alien fleet requested immediate contact. Their demand was simple and terrifying. They wanted Evan Hale. The room went silent. Evan felt his stomach drop. He searched his memory, wondering what crime he could have committed without knowing. The commanders argued quietly, fear in their voices. Refusing was not an option. Provoking such a fleet would mean destruction. Under heavy guard, Evan was brought into the diplomatic chamber. The alien delegation entered. At their center walked a tall, graceful figure, her presence commanding the room. Her skin carried a familiar glow, softer now, controlled. Her eyes, those same eyes, found Evan immediately. Recognition struck him like a physical blow. She looked at him, and for a moment the room, the guards, the galaxy itself seemed to disappear. She stepped forward and spoke, her voice calm, clear, and perfectly translated. "Evan Hale," she said, "you saved my life." Evan could not speak. She continued, turning slightly so all could hear. "When I was a child, alone and injured, you showed me mercy when you had no reason to. You protected me when the galaxy would not." Her gaze returned to him, steady and intense. "I have returned," she said, "to repay that debt." Evan finally found his voice, though it trembled. I just helped someone who was hurt." A faint smile touched her face. "To humans it was kindness," she said. "To my people it was destiny." The room held its breath as she spoke the words that would echo across the stars. "I have come," she said, "to bind our lives. I have come to wed you." And Evan Hale realized that one small act, done in a dark corridor years ago, had just changed humanity's future forever. The room did not move for several seconds after her words were spoken. Human guards tightened their grip on their weapons, unsure whether to raise them or lower them. Commanders stared at the glowing woman in disbelief. Evan Hale stood in the center of it all, his mind struggling to catch up with reality. "Wed you." The word echoed again and again in his head. He took a step back without thinking. "There's been a mistake," Evan said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not important. I didn't save you for any reason like that. I didn't even know who you were." The alien woman did not look offended. If anything, she looked relieved. "That answer," she said calmly, "is why my people chose you." Murmurs spread across the room. Human officials exchanged worried glances. This was not how first contact diplomacy was supposed to go. Marriage was not a topic found in any emergency protocol. The planetary governor finally found her voice. "Honored envoy," she said carefully, "humans do not bind alliances through personal bonds. Surely there is another way to repay a life debt." The woman turned her gaze to the governor. Her eyes were gentle, but something ancient and unyielding rested behind them. "To my people," she replied, "there is no higher bond." She gestured to the figures behind her. They were tall, elegant beings, each wearing markings of rank and history. "We are the Aurelian conquered. We have existed since before your species first shaped stone. We do not offer ourselves lightly." That name hit the room like a shockwave. The Aurelian conquered was known across the galaxy. They were not conquerors, but when they spoke, empires listened. Their technology was generations beyond most civilizations. Their alliances were rare and permanent. Human leaders felt fear settle deep in their bones. Evan felt something else, guilt. "I didn't mean to bind anything," Evan said, looking back at her. "You were a child, you were hurt, anyone would have helped." The alien woman stepped closer, stopping just an arm's length away. "No," she said softly, "they would not have." She raised one hand and a soft projection filled the air. Images appeared, flickering scenes from the past. refugee stations, burning corridors, beings stepping over the injured, doors closing to protect themselves. Then one final image appeared. A human man kneeling in a dark corridor holding out his hands. "You returned when alarms told you to flee," she said. "You used your own supplies, you carried me through danger. Among my people, that is not chance, that is choice." The projection faded. Evan lowered his eyes. He did not see a hero in that memory. He saw a tired man who could not walk away. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Other species monitored the Aurelian fleet's arrival in human space with growing alarm. When word of the proposed bond leaked through diplomatic channels, panic followed. Emergency councils formed. Ancient treaties were reviewed. No one had ever married into the Aurelian conquered before. If humans gained even partial access to Aurelian protection, the balance of power would tilt forever. Some species reacted with fear, others with anger, and some with dangerous ideas. Back in the human chamber, discussions stretched on for hours. Evan was examined by medical teams, questioned by diplomats, and pulled aside by intelligence officers who spoke in urgent whispers. They asked him if the aliens had manipulated him, if he felt threatened, if he understood the consequences. Evan answered honestly every time. "I just helped her," he said. "That's all." The Aurelian woman, whose name translated roughly to Lyrian of the Seventh Light, remained calm through it all. She watched the humans closely, studying how they argued not for advantage, but for caution. "You fear what this bond means," Lyrian said finally. "Yes," the governor admitted. "We fear what it could do to our people." Lyrian nodded. "That fear honors you." She turned to Evan again. "Among my kind, power seeks power, but we seek something else. We seek those who protect the weak without being asked." Evan rubbed his face, exhausted. "I don't even know you," he said. "You will," she replied. That night, Evan was placed under protective watch, not as a prisoner, but as something far more dangerous, a symbol. Human media struggled to frame the story. Some praised Evan as a hero, others called him reckless. A few accused him of endangering humanity by forming emotional bonds with powerful aliens. Evan ignored it all. He sat alone in his quarters, staring at the ceiling, thinking about a glowing-eyed child clutching his jacket. He did not sleep. On the third day, the first attempt was made on Lyrian's life. The attackers were not human. Security systems detected the breach seconds before it happened. A disguised diplomatic shuttle released autonomous weapons aimed directly at the Aurelian delegation wing. Human response teams reacted instantly. They did not wait for permission. Engineers sealed corridors. Soldiers moved without panic. Civilians were evacuated in orderly lines. Evan watched the chaos unfold through emergency feeds, his heart pounding. When the attack was repelled, Lyrian stood unharmed among her guards. She observed the human response with quiet attention. "They moved fast," she said. "They always do in a crisis," a human officer replied. "We don't have time for hesitation." Later, Lyrian requested to speak with Evan privately. They sat across from each other in a simple room. No guards, no translators needed. Her people had learned human language well. "Others will keep trying," Lyrian said. "If this bond is completed, enemies will multiply." Evan met her gaze. "Then maybe it shouldn't happen." Lyrian tilted her head slightly. "You still place the galaxy above yourself." Evan shrugged. "Someone has to." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but heavy. "I will not force you," Lyrian said at last. "If you refuse, my people will accept it. But understand this, your species will still be watched. What you did cannot be undone." Evan felt the weight of that truth. Humanity had already been noticed, not for strength, for mercy. Outside, alien governments debated how to respond to a species that formed alliances by accident and loyalty instead of threat. For the first time, the galaxy began to ask a dangerous question. What happens when kindness becomes power? Evan looked at Lyrian and finally asked the question that had haunted him. "Did you really come just because of me?" She smiled, small and sincere. "You were the beginning," she said, "but humans were the answer." Evan did not know whether to feel proud or afraid. He only knew that the future was no longer quiet. The days that followed felt heavier than the years that came before. Evan Hale was no longer allowed to walk anywhere alone. Human security stayed close, polite but firm. The Aurelian conquered added their own quiet guardians, beings who moved like living light and never seemed distracted. Evan felt like a fragile object placed between two careful hands. He still did not feel important. Across the colony, life continued under tension. Ships were delayed, trade routes paused. Civilian broadcasts spoke in calm voices while showing images of the massive Aurelian fleet hanging in the sky like silent stars. People tried to act normal, but everyone knew history was bending around one ordinary man. Lyrian spent most of her time in discussion chambers with human leaders. Evan was not invited to those meetings, and he was grateful for that. He had no interest in politics. Still, he felt the pull of responsibility growing stronger each day. On the fifth morning, Lyrian requested Evan's presence again. They met in a public observation garden built inside the command complex. Transparent walls revealed space beyond, dotted with distant ships and stars. It was quiet there, intentionally so. Lyrian stood near a small tree brought from Earth, its leaves gently moving in artificial air. She studied it with curiosity. "Your plants are stubborn," she said. "They grow even when moved far from their sun." Evan nodded. "We're like that too," she turned to him. "That is becoming clear." They walked slowly along the path. Evan noticed how carefully Lyrian matched her pace to his. She never rushed him. "I have learned more about humans," she said. "Your history is short yet full of conflict. You fight each other often, yet still choose to protect strangers." "We're not perfect," Evan said. "We mess up a lot." "So do we," Lyrian replied. "The difference is that your mistakes do not stop your compassion." Evan did not know how to answer that. Elsewhere, far beyond human space, decisions were being made. Several alien powers viewed the growing bond between humanity and the Aurelian conquered as an unacceptable risk. Some believed humans were manipulators hiding behind soft gestures. Others feared that humans, once protected, would rise too fast. A quiet agreement formed among those who felt threatened. If the bond could not be stopped through diplomacy, it would be stopped through chaos. The next attack was subtler. It did not involve weapons or explosions. It involved information. False messages began appearing across human and alien networks, claims that Evan had planned the bond, that he had studied Aurelian customs to gain advantage, that humanity had groomed him for this purpose. The lies spread fast. Human public trust wavered. Some citizens began to fear that they had been pulled into something dangerous without consent. Protests formed in a few cities, peaceful but loud. Evan watched the broadcasts with a sinking feeling. "This is my fault," he said quietly. Lyrian shook her head. "No, this is fear defending itself." Human leaders reacted carefully. Instead of censoring information, they opened their systems. Independent investigations were launched. Evan's full service record was released, unedited. It showed a simple truth. Evan Hale had never been special. No hidden training, no secret payments, no preparation, just routine work and one moment of choice. That honesty slowed the damage. Lyrian watched closely as human institutions chose transparency over control. Among her people, power was often protected by secrecy. Humanity's openness confused and impressed her. "Your kind risks much by telling the truth," she said. "We've learned lies break things faster," Evan replied. That night, the third attempt came. This time it was aimed at Evan. A service corridor malfunctioned during a routine transfer. Doors sealed. Power dropped. Emergency systems failed one by one. It looked like an accident. It was. Evan was alone in the corridor when the air grew cold and the lights went out. He stopped walking, heart pounding. Training told him to stay calm, but instinct screamed danger. He pressed his communicator. No signal. From the darkness ahead, shapes moved, not soldiers, not machines, creatures designed to be untraceable, silent, disposable. Evan backed away slowly, his hands empty. Then the corridor walls lit up. Human emergency systems reactivated all at once. Hidden panels opened. Automated barriers dropped between Evan and the attackers. Security drones flooded the space, not firing but blocking paths, herding the intruders into containment zones. Within seconds, it was over. Evan stood shaking, alive. Human engineers had predicted sabotage attempts. They had quietly upgraded civilian infrastructure with layered fail-safes, not aggressive defenses, protective ones. Lyrian arrived moments later, her calm broken for the first time. She placed a glowing hand on Evan's arm, steadying him. "They would have killed you," she said. Evan nodded. "Yeah." She looked around at the human response teams. None were celebrating, none were angry. They simply worked, restoring systems, checking on Evan, securing evidence. "They defended without hate," Lyrian said softly. Later, when the captured attackers were identified, the truth became clear. Multiple alien factions were involved. Old rivals, former allies, all afraid. Human leaders could have exposed them immediately, could have demanded punishment. Instead, they did something unexpected. They invited them to observe. A formal message was sent across diplomatic channels. It showed footage of the attack and the human response. It included Evan's testimony. No accusations, no threats, just one statement. "This is who we are," the galaxy watched. Evan was asked to address a joint assembly, human and alien alike. He resisted at first. He was not a speaker. But eventually he stood before the cameras. He did not prepare a speech. "I don't understand galactic politics," Evan said plainly. "I don't understand power games. I fixed machines. I helped someone because they were hurt." He paused, hands shaking slightly. "If that scares you," he continued, "then maybe you should ask why." Silence followed. Lyrian stood among her people, her posture proud. In the days that followed, something shifted. Alien citizens from neutral worlds began sending messages of support. Refugee groups spoke up, sharing stories of human aid crews who stayed behind, who shared supplies, who never asked for loyalty in return. The image of humanity began to change. Not warriors, not manipulators. Caretakers who did not know when to stop caring. Evan met Lyrian again in the garden. "I didn't choose this," he said. "No," she replied, "but you are choosing how to carry it." He looked at her. "And you, did you really grow up thinking you'd marry a human?" She smiled, a genuine, warm expression. "I grew up thinking the galaxy was cold. You proved it was." Evan let out a slow breath. "I'm still scared." "So am I," Lyrian said. They stood side by side, watching ships drift beyond the glass. The galaxy had tried force. It had tried lies, it had tried fear. And each time, humanity responded the same way, by protecting, by telling the truth, by refusing to become what others expected. Far away, ancient powers reconsidered their plans. Because for the first time, they saw a danger they could not fight easily. A species whose greatest weapon was not strength, but trust. And trust, once earned, was impossible to destroy. The galaxy did not calm down after trust appeared. It became more dangerous. Once fear failed, pressure began. Human space saw an increase in diplomatic visits, many unannounced. Envoys arrived with polite smiles and sharp questions. They asked about human laws, human emotions, and human limits. They asked about Evan Hale more than anyone was comfortable with. Evan felt like a door everyone wanted to walk through. He stayed quiet, doing what he had always done. He showed up when asked. He answered honestly. He refused to be flattered or threatened. That, more than anything else, unsettled the visitors. Lyrian noticed it too. "You frustrate them," she said one evening as they walked along the station's outer ring, stars stretching endlessly beyond the transparent barrier. "I'm not trying to," Evan replied. "I just don't play games." "That is the problem," Lyrian said softly. "The galaxy is built on games." Behind closed doors, something darker was forming. A coalition of powers that called themselves the Stabilizers began secret coordination. They believed that humanity's rise through moral influence was too unpredictable. Weapons could be measured. Fleets could be counted. Compassion could not. Their plan was simple: force humanity to choose. A crisis erupted without warning. A distant human colony on the edge of explored space went silent. No signals, no distress call, just absence. Long-range scans showed ships in orbit, unfamiliar designs blocking all access. The Stabilizers made their message public. They claimed the colony was under protective custody. They accused humans of forming illegal alliances and destabilizing galactic order. They demanded the immediate cancellation of the Aurelian bond, or the colony would remain isolated. Panic spread across human space. Families cried on broadcasts, politicians argued, military advisors demanded action. Humanity did not have the strength to fight the coalition directly. Evan watched the news in silence, fists clenched. "This is because of me," he said. Lyrian shook her head firmly. "This is because of what you represent." Human leaders convened emergency councils. Some argued for compliance. Others argued that surrender would make humans weak forever. Lyrian was invited to speak. She stood before them, tall and calm, her presence filling the chamber without force. "If you break the bond," she said, "the coalition will not stop. They will have learned that threats work." "And if we do?" a general asked. "Then they will learn something else," Lyrian replied. "What?" the governor asked. "That humanity does not abandon its own." Evan listened, heart pounding. The decision took hours. When it came, it shocked the galaxy. Humanity refused, not with anger, not with speeches. With action, human civilian fleets launched immediately. Aid ships, medical transports, and evacuation vessels moved toward the captured colony. They were unarmed. Their routes and cargo lists were transmitted openly. Alongside them flew Aurelian vessels. Not warships, but guardians moving silently at the edges. The stabilizers did not expect this. They blocked the civilian ships, issuing threats. Human captains responded calmly. "We are bringing food and medicine to our people," they said. "If you fire on us, the galaxy will see." Across the stars, countless systems watched the standoff. Evan stood beside Lyrian in the command center, hands trembling. "They could kill them," he said. "Yes," Lyrian replied, "and they know it." Minutes stretched into hours. Then something unexpected happened. Neutral species began to arrive, first one ship, then another. Then dozens. They did not carry weapons. They carried observers, cameras, legal envoys, witnesses. Refugee groups arrived next, broadcasting messages of support. Old stories resurfaced of humans who had helped them long ago. The coalition's isolation plan was collapsing. They could not attack without becoming monsters in full view of the galaxy. Inside the captured colony, something else unfolded. Human colonists did not riot. They did not sabotage. They helped each other, shared supplies, comforted children. They broadcast messages outward, calm and steady. "We are okay," they said. "We trust our people." Those words hit harder than any threat. Under pressure from every side, the stabilizers retreated. The blockade lifted. The colony was freed without a single shot fired. The galaxy reeled. Evan felt his knees weaken. He sat down hard, breathing fast. "They listened," he whispered. "They saw," Lyrian corrected. In the aftermath, the final decision was made. The bond ceremony would proceed, not in secret, not in power halls, in open space broadcast freely. Evan stood alone before it happened, staring at his reflection in a simple mirror. He looked the same as always, tired eyes. Plain clothes, no sign of the weight he carried. Lyrian joined him. "You can still walk away," she said. Evan shook his head. "I won't, not because of destiny, because this is right." She inclined her head. "That answer still amazes me." The ceremony was simple by design. No crowns, no displays of dominance. Two beings standing together acknowledging shared responsibility. As they spoke the final words, something changed. Not light, not energy, recognition. Across the galaxy, systems updated records. Human status shifted quietly, officially. Not as rulers, as equals, Evan felt no triumph, only resolve. Afterward, when the crowds faded and the ships dispersed, Evan and Lyrian stood together once more, watching the stars. "I never wanted power," Evan said. Lyrian smiled gently. "Neither did we, that is why it lasts." Far away, ancient species took note. Humanity had faced fear, threats, and pressure, and answered with unity. The galaxy had tried to bend them. Instead, it had been changed. The galaxy did not end after the bond was completed. It adjusted. That adjustment was slow, uneasy, and full of quiet tension. Old powers watched humanity closely now, not with open fear, but with careful attention. Humans were no longer ignored. They were no longer underestimated. They were studied. Evan Hale felt that change in small ways. His name appeared in documents he never saw. His past actions were reviewed by minds far older than his species. And yet his daily life became simpler, not more complex. He refused titles. He refused command. He chose to remain what he had always been, someone who helped systems work and people survive. Lyrian respected that more than anything. They lived for a time on a shared station positioned between human and Aurelian space. It was not a palace. It was not symbolic. It was practical, designed as a place where cultures could meet without hierarchy. Evan spent his mornings repairing climate controls and logistics systems. Lyrian spent hers guiding diplomats and observers through calm, careful discussions. When they met in the evenings, they spoke not of power, but of ordinary things. What food tasted strange, which stars were brightest, how silence could mean peace instead of fear. The galaxy noticed that too. Other species expected humanity to demand advantages. Technology transfers, military support, trade dominance. Humanity did none of that. Instead, they opened humanitarian corridors, expanded refugee aid, shared non-weapon research freely, medical breakthroughs, environmental recovery systems. The Aurelian conquered watched quietly. This was the true test. Many alliances collapsed after the first victory. After recognition came pride. After pride came greed. Humans surprised them again. Years passed. Children on distant worlds grew up hearing stories of the day humans stood unarmed before warships and refused to abandon their own. Refugees told their children that humans stayed when others left. Among the Aurelian people, Evan's name became a teaching symbol. Not of dominance, of choice. Then the crisis came that confirmed everything. A dying star system near the edge of known space began to collapse. Multiple inhabited worlds were threatened. Evacuation was possible, but only if thousands of ships worked together under a single plan. No ancient power volunteered to lead. No empire wanted the responsibility. Humanity stepped forward. They did not claim authority. They offered coordination. Evan helped design the logistics network himself, working long hours beside engineers of dozens of species. Lyrian worked tirelessly to calm old rivalries and keep communication open. Ships arrived, not because they were ordered, because they were invited. The evacuation succeeded. Billions survived. When it was over, the galaxy did something unprecedented. They did not crown humanity. They trusted them. A permanent cooperative council was formed, not ruled by strength, but guided by shared responsibility. Humans were asked to anchor it, not because they were the strongest, because they did not seek control. Evan stood before the assembly one final time, older now, lines etched into his face from years of quiet work. "I don't think humanity is special," he said honestly. "I think we just never learned how to stop caring once we started." The chamber was silent. Then slowly, beings of countless forms lowered their heads in respect. Later that night, Evan and Lyrian stood together beneath a wide viewing window. Stars drifted peacefully beyond the glass. "Do you regret it?" Evan asked. Lyrian shook her head. "I regret only that fear ruled the galaxy for so long." Evan smiled faintly. "I still don't feel like I did anything big." Lyrian took his hand. "That is why it was." Far away, on a quiet world, a human aid worker knelt beside an injured alien child and offered help without thinking. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in its long history, it felt something unfamiliar. Hope.